Okay, so it seems like recently there's been a little bit more talk surrounding Suisei's new Studio Stella, which obviously is handling a lot of management and things, which we have been talking about. And yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of confusion and a lot of people, kind of making things up or whatever whenever it comes to Suisei. And it seems like she has actually responded to this in regards to some of the clippers that have been taking it out of context, which obviously I think is, great. Obviously, it's great that she's calling this out because, of course, it's something that is a big issue, especially whenever it comes to misinformation spreading. Now, of course, we went through this post in the last video from Cover themselves, obviously outlining exactly what they're planning to do, what's going to happen with Suisei, what's going to happen with her and Hololive, and how they're going to interact. Again, this covers everything. This is all you need to read if you really want to know what is going on, if you want to understand what is happening. And again, we have a previous video reading through all of this if you guys want to go back and watch that. But essentially, yeah, it seems like some people just didn't read this or whatever and went on to spread some other stuff as well, which I think is pretty crazy. And yeah, this comes from the Hololive Reddit here saying, Suisei requests that clippers preserve the original nuance of her words. It's sad that people who might have just, who haven't watched the stream might just see that and misunderstand. So when transcribing the words, I said in the stream to Twitter, please try to keep the nuances as close to the original as possible, okay? So yeah, essentially, she's particularly talking about clippers there in terms of transcribing the words and whatever. And I think there is a lot of issues whenever it comes to clipping people that have been clipping this because sometimes it can get lost. And I think that, usually whenever it comes to VTuber clips, especially Hololive clips, they're a little bit more funny, entertaining. So the transcribing and the kind of translation doesn't matter so much because, of course, there's no real big consequences. There's no, it's not a big subject. It's not a subject that needs to be told with accuracy, right? But whenever it comes to this, it 100% does need to be told with accuracy and clipped in the correct way as well, because some people might, cut it and cut it and cut it on things that they feel like, isn't really necessary, but it might actually be necessary. So again, obviously, that is a bit of a problem too. And obviously, yeah, that was just the Japanese message there. So of course, yeah, she's just telling everybody there to essentially do that, right? And obviously people saying, I just follow Eurof only for this kind of critical announcement. Historically, most reliable and representative of what the talent said. Said perfect Euro. Said, do you have a link to them? I like trusted clippers. Obviously, they link a clipper that they feel like is trusted. This is Euro, apparently. Again, I don't think I have seen their clips before. And again, it seems like apparently they do some good trusted clips and actually kind of do clips that are actually representative of what they're trying to say, which I think is good. And there's been a lot of people saying Euro is also always active in the EN Suicord during streams, during streams live TLing as well. They're the best. So sadly, that won't stop the clippers. Most prioritize views / clicks over talent's real words. Said not to forget, most clippers aren't Japanese speakers as well. I appreciate their work and speed, but there's been too many times I've seen things getting mistranslated. And yeah, that's what I said, right? I think that, yeah, things getting mistranslated 100% is one of the biggest issues. And sometimes it's not even like necessarily anything malicious, right? Sometimes it's not like, them trying to spin a narrative or whatever, and it's just like kind of ends up going badly. No, sometimes it is literally genuinely just because they can't translate it properly, which sounds pretty funny considering that is their only job, to translate clips. But again, it does happen and it can have consequences whenever it comes to big clips about talking about her agency and stuff like that, because of course then information can get mixed up. You can forget some kind of details. Fans will get a little bit confused, and obviously that is also the problem with like a lot of summaries and things as well of this situation, right? Without actually going through the full article that was put out about it, I feel like a lot of these summaries go over or miss out some of the key information that obviously then drives a lot of fans to go a little bit crazy over it, and yeah, it becomes a bit of an issue, right? They say a lot of them aren't proper English speakers, with how often they can't accurately sub the talents or make context comments outside of the spoken lines with atrocious spelling and grammar. Not an AI thing either. Just seems like terrible use of auto-generated subs that then get auto or Google translated. Said, nope, not AI, just ESL and no sense of quality control. You can tell when someone has made a typo, but tons of translations don't make sense in English and have a ton of mistakes. The easiest way to tell though is by looking at any closed caption. If they have them of English, streams, any amount of mistakes is a red flag. So yeah, obviously the clips have too much power. One translation, accidental or intentional, can twist words into a bad narrative, which I do think is true. Obviously, someone said, as a clipper myself, it doesn't even just require a mistranslation. Clip source topics rarely exist as just a clean section with a defined start and end point. You can just cut. There's also often additional context before and after, as well as it's just scattered through the stream. You end up needing to decide where to cut it. A 30-minute clip isn't helpful to anybody. You may as well send someone a link to the stream, but you need to get as much context as possible, which again is true, right? Because, you know, clippers are supposed to be clippers. They're supposed to post clips, not like full feature-length films. And obviously, yeah, it can be a little bit hard for a clipper maybe sometimes to kind of like, you know, clip it to the point where there's enough information on what is going on, but also not making it like, yeah, 30 minutes long, as they said. They said, and even once you do have to cut it, you then need to edit it down. I typically trim out a very long pauses or non-connected tangents, etc. But sometimes you get the hard decisions on where to draw the line. I've made this mistake before, and it happens when he posted, you know, 1,500 videos on 2 channels over 5 years. And when they're particularly bad, I delete the clip. My clips aren't perfect. I do often use clickbait on less important videos, but I do try and do the right thing whenever it comes to more serious topics. But there are also clippers who do it intentionally, although most of those thankfully died out over the last few years due to the backlash as the fan base solidified into a more dedicated and knowledgeable group rather than more casual viewers. You can make VTubers say pretty much anything through the right splicing. With the way that VTuber models of motion works, they are very visual cues to when a splice occurred, and in many clips the splicing already happens for non-malicious reasons, like removing a long pause, for example. If someone was talking about issues with management that had been resolved, someone could remove the part about it being resolved and paint management in a bad light, which is almost guaranteed to get traction. I'm lucky enough with my RRL job, there is no temptation to do that sort of thing intentionally. The money that I get from clipping doesn't significantly change my finances. I just clip as a hobby, and most treat any revenue as money to give back to the community, and set aside to spend on memberships, merch, fan projects, and buying stuff from artistic conventions. But for a lot of people, the money will be significant when you can't afford to pay rent or put food on the table. Editing a clip to be more dramatic is pretty tempting, even more so when you consider that Hololive has an international fan base and that money carries a lot of weight in some economies. So yeah, obviously that is 100% true, right? And that is a very good summary, I guess I would say, of exactly how, you know, clippers are, right? And how some clippers operate, and obviously how this clipper in particular operates in kind of, I guess, not context, in comparison, in contrast to other, you know, clippers that might obviously, you know, clickbait a bit more, do some more drama stuff. But again, obviously, that is a really, really good explanation, actually, in regards to why this is a thing, right? It said yours very good. Yes, there's a clip called Hololive Clips that you'd expect to be garbage too, but has some surprisingly decent subs. So yeah, I think the main issue that people have is the quality of the translation and the quality of the subtitles that get put out, because again, as they say, a lot of people often end up not knowing English or not knowing Japanese or whatever, right? Because again, yeah, it can, you know, work either way around. You know, you don't have to be bad at Japanese to, you know, you can be bad at Japanese and mistranslate it because you're bad at Japanese, but you could also be bad at English, right? You can be really, really good at Japanese, understanding what they're saying, but then it's all about, you know, putting it into words and putting it into English, and that's when it starts to become an issue for some people. And of course, yeah, that ends up, you know, creating misinformation, creating false kind of translations and whatever, which of course then affects people like Suisei to the point where she has to go and talk about it and ask people to keep it original and keep a lot of the nuance of the post. And, you know, a lot of people have been saying, like, if this can't be clipped, then maybe don't clip it. And I do think that is true, right? I do think at the end of the day, although clippers do a lot for, you know, VTubers and the VTubing community, I do think that if it is a post like this, you can't translate it fully or properly, or you can't include a longer version of this clip to kind of, you know, give people more context on what is going on such a serious situation, then maybe it's probably not worth clipping it at all, because, you know, it's just going to end up looking bad, right? Of course, go ahead and clip anything else, right, and some fun moments or whatever, but whenever it comes to a serious topic like this, you know, I think it starts to become an issue whenever it's misrepresented, and, you know, obviously, as we say, does not like that either. So again, that is essentially all there is with this situation. I just kind of wanted to cover it because, again, I thought it was a pretty interesting one there. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, good games up. Use my code Kazza, get 10% off. Again, they got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.